Few people ever see the moment a female empath truly changes. Not because it happens loudly, not because she announces it, but because by the time everyone notices, it is already too late. Most people believe that when a female empath gets hurt, she will keep chasing, keep explaining, keep forgiving, and keep fighting for the connection, no matter how much pain she carries. They expect her to stay. They expect her to understand. They expect her heart to remain open forever. That belief creates one of the biggest misunderstandings about empaths. The truth is that a hurt female empath does not always react the way people expect. In fact, the most shocking part is not how much pain she can endure. The most shocking part is what happens when she finally decides she has endured enough. The day an empath reaches her emotional limit is often the day everything changes, and many people never see it coming. Female empaths are known for feeling deeply. They naturally sense emotions that others miss. They notice pain hidden behind anger. They recognize fear hidden behind arrogance. They often see the wounded side of people even when everyone else sees only bad behavior. Because of this, they give chances that most people would never give. They forgive mistakes. They overlook red flags. They stay through situations that drain them emotionally. They continue believing that love, patience, and understanding can eventually fix what is broken. Yet this strength often becomes the very reason they are taken for granted. Many people mistake kindness for weakness. They mistake patience for dependence. They assume the empath will always return, always understand, and always be available no matter how badly she is treated. But what they fail to realize is that every empath has a breaking point. Every heart has a limit. And when that limit is finally reached, a powerful psychological shift begins. What makes this transformation so fascinating is that it rarely looks dramatic from the outside. There are no loud warnings, no emotional speeches, no desperate attempts to prove a point. Instead, the change happens quietly. The person who once gave endless chances begins to see things differently. The person who once carried everyone else's emotions begins to put down that weight. The person who once fought to keep people close begins to question whether those people deserve access to her energy at all. And once that process starts, the outcome often shocks everyone around her. In today's video, we are going to uncover what really happens when a female empath is deeply hurt. We will explore the hidden psychological changes that most people never notice until it is too late. We will reveal why some empaths suddenly become distant, why they stop chasing, why they stop explaining themselves, and why the people who expected endless forgiveness are often left confused by the person she becomes. Most importantly, you will discover the final stage of this transformation, a stage that many people underestimate and almost nobody sees coming. Stay with us until the very end, because the last revelation may completely change the way you understand female empaths and emotional healing. Welcome to the channel. And if you enjoy exploring human behavior, psychology, and the hidden patterns behind relationships, make sure to subscribe and join us for more videos like this. The first sign that a hurt female empath is changing is usually the sign that most people completely miss. They expect anger, they expect confrontation, they expect emotional reactions. Instead, what often appears is silence. Not the silence of confusion, not the silence of fear, a different kind of silence. The kind that slowly grows after countless conversations have gone nowhere. The kind that appears after explanations have been ignored again and again. For a long time, a female empath believes that communication can solve almost anything. When something hurts her, she talks about it. When a problem appears, she tries to understand it. When conflict enters a relationship, she searches for solutions. She believes that if two people care enough, they can work through almost any challenge. This is why she spends so much energy explaining her feelings. She wants to be understood, but even more than that, she wants the relationship itself to survive. Many people never realize how much effort an empath puts into keeping connections alive. They see the conversations, but they do not see the emotional labor behind them. They do not see the hours spent thinking, analyzing, understanding, forgiving, and trying again. At first, when she feels hurt, she speaks up. She explains what bothered her. She explains why certain actions affected her. She tries to create understanding. She hopes honesty will bring change. But when the same patterns continue, something starts happening inside her. Each ignored conversation removes a little more hope. Each broken promise weakens her desire to keep trying. Each disappointment teaches her a lesson she never wanted to learn. Slowly, she begins to understand that understanding someone and changing someone are two very different things. She can understand why a person behaves the way they do. She can understand their fears. She can understand their wounds. She can even understand their excuses. But understanding does not erase the pain those actions create. This realization changes her behavior in subtle ways. She stops repeating herself. She stops having the same conversations over and over. She stops trying to convince people to care. What once felt urgent no longer feels worth discussing. The emotional energy that used to fuel endless conversations begins to disappear. People often mistake this stage for peace. They assume everything is fine because the arguments have stopped. They assume the empath has finally accepted the situation. In reality, something much deeper is happening. She is no longer fighting because she is no longer investing in the outcome the way she once did. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing that emotional withdrawal happens suddenly. Most of the time, it happens gradually. It happens one disappointment at a time. One ignored boundary at a time, one broken promise at a time. Each event seems small by itself, but together they create a powerful shift. The empath begins pulling her energy back. She becomes less enthusiastic. Her messages become shorter. Her excitement fades. The emotional warmth that once filled every interaction becomes harder to find. People notice the difference, but they often misunderstand it. They think she is being distant. They think she is being cold. What they fail to understand is that she is protecting what remains of her emotional energy. A female empath can tolerate a great deal of pain when she believes there is hope. Hope keeps her engaged. Hope keeps her trying. Hope keeps her investing. But when hope begins to disappear, her behavior changes dramatically. She no longer feels responsible for fixing everything. She no longer feels obligated to carry the emotional weight of every relationship. She begins to realize that constantly pouring into people who never pour back is not love. It is exhaustion. This is why emotional withdrawal is often the first stage of transformation. Before she leaves physically, she leaves emotionally. Her body may still be present, her conversations may continue, her routines may remain unchanged. Yet internally, a separation has already begun. The emotional connection that once felt unbreakable starts weakening. The attachment starts loosening. The need for approval starts fading. She begins spending less time worrying about how others feel and more time paying attention to how she feels. Many people become confused during this stage because they are used to receiving unlimited access to her empathy. They are used to her checking in. They are used to her concern. They are used to her emotional availability. When that energy begins disappearing, they feel the difference immediately. Suddenly, the person who always reached out becomes quiet. The person who always asked questions becomes reserved. The person who always tried to understand becomes difficult to read. What they are witnessing is not emotional cruelty, it is emotional exhaustion reaching its limit. The silence isn't punishment, it's preparation. For years, many female empaths unconsciously take on the role of emotional rescuer. They see someone's pain and immediately want to help. They see someone's struggles and feel compelled to support them. Their compassion is genuine. Their intentions are sincere. They want people to heal. They want relationships to improve. They want everyone around them to feel understood and valued. Because of this, they often give far more than they receive. This pattern becomes dangerous when helping turns into rescuing. Helping allows people to grow. Rescuing often allows people to avoid responsibility. A female empath may spend months or even years trying to save someone from their own choices. She listens, she advises, she encourages, she forgives, she waits for change. She believes that enough patience will eventually produce a breakthrough. Sometimes it does, many times it does not. The painful truth she eventually discovers is that not everyone wants healing. Some people simply want comfort, some want validation, some want attention, some want access to her emotional support without making any effort to improve themselves. This realization can be heartbreaking because it forces her to confront a reality she spent years avoiding. Love cannot heal someone who refuses to heal themselves. Understanding cannot transform someone who refuses to grow. Compassion cannot create change for a person who does not value change. As this understanding develops, a new awareness begins forming. She starts noticing how much energy she has spent carrying other people's burdens. She remembers all the time she ignored her own needs while focusing on everyone else's problems. She remembers the emotional sacrifices she made. She remembers the nights she spent worrying about people who rarely worried about her. The weight of these realizations can be overwhelming. This is where emotional exhaustion enters the picture. Many people think exhaustion comes from doing too much work. Emotional exhaustion often comes from giving too much of yourself. It comes from constantly absorbing the emotions of others. It comes from always being the strong one. It comes from endlessly supporting people who never learn to support themselves. The female empath begins seeing her relationships through a different lens. She starts asking questions she avoided before. Why am I carrying responsibilities that belong to someone else? Why am I sacrificing my peace to protect people from the consequences of their own choices? Why am I constantly giving without receiving the same care in return? These questions become impossible to ignore. As the answers become clearer, boundaries begin to emerge. Not walls, boundaries. There is a difference. Walls are built to keep everyone out. Boundaries are built to protect what matters. The empath slowly learns that saying no does not make her selfish. Limiting access does not make her cruel. Protecting her energy does not make her uncaring. In fact, these actions often represent the healthiest decisions she has ever made. People who benefited from her endless availability may not like these changes. They may accuse her of changing. They may accuse her of becoming distant. They may question why she is no longer willing to solve every problem. What they fail to realize is that the old version of her was running on emotional depletion. The new version is learning self-respect. She realizes that saving everyone was destroying her. As this transformation continues, another powerful shift begins taking place. The female empath becomes much harder to manipulate. This change often surprises people the most because it affects dynamics that may have existed for years previously. She gave people the benefit of the doubt almost automatically. She wanted to believe the best in others. She wanted to trust intentions. She wanted to focus on potential rather than patterns. This optimism made her compassionate, but it also made her vulnerable. Over time, experience teaches her lessons that kindness alone could never teach. She begins recognizing repeated behaviors. She notices promises that never become actions. She notices apologies that lead to no change. She notices emotional cycles repeating over and over again. The same excuses, the same disappointments, the same temporary improvements, followed by the same harmful behavior. One of the most important differences between an inexperienced empath and a hurt empath is awareness. The inexperienced empath focuses on words. The hurt empath focuses on consistency. She starts paying attention to what people actually do. She learns that intentions mean very little without action. She learns that potential means very little without effort. This awareness changes her reactions. In the past, guilt tactics might have worked. Emotional pressure might have influenced her decisions. Manipulative apologies might have pulled her back into unhealthy situations. But now she pauses. She observes. She listens. She gives herself time to think. Instead of reacting emotionally, she begins responding thoughtfully. This creates a problem for people who relied on emotional manipulation. Their old methods stop working. The empath no longer rushes to fix every conflict. She no longer accepts every excuse. She no longer ignores every red flag. She sees patterns where she once saw isolated incidents. She sees motives where she once saw misunderstandings. Many people assume that becoming harder to manipulate means becoming cynical. That is not what happens. The female empath does not lose her compassion. She simply combines compassion with wisdom. She continues caring about people, but she stops allowing that care to blind her judgment. She understands that empathy without boundaries invites exploitation. She understands that kindness without discernment attracts unhealthy dynamics. As a result, her presence changes. She becomes calmer, more observant, more selective. She does not rush to trust. She does not rush to forgive. She does not rush to invest emotionally. She takes her time. She watches. She learns. She evaluates actions instead of promises. The woman who once gave endless chances now watches actions instead of words. After a female empath begins recognizing unhealthy patterns and stops allowing herself to be manipulated, another change starts to take shape. This change is often one of the most surprising because it affects every relationship in her life, not just the one that hurt her. For years, many empaths struggle with a simple word, no. Not because they do not know how to say it, but because saying it makes them feel guilty. They worry about disappointing people. They worry about appearing selfish. They worry about hurting someone's feelings. As a result, they say yes when they are exhausted. They say yes when they need rest. They say yes when they are overwhelmed. They say yes even when every part of them is asking for space. Over time, this creates a dangerous habit. The empath becomes available to everyone except herself. Her needs move to the bottom of the list while everyone else's needs move to the top. This pattern rarely begins with bad intentions. It often starts with kindness. She wants to help. She wants to support. She wants people to feel cared for. But eventually, she notices something important. The more she sacrifices her own needs, the more people expect those sacrifices. What once felt appreciated slowly becomes expected. What once felt generous slowly becomes required. Some people stop seeing her kindness as a gift and start treating it like an obligation. They assume she will always be there. They assume she will always understand. They assume she will always make room for their problems, regardless of what she is going through herself. The hurt female empath eventually reaches a point where she begins questioning these expectations. She starts noticing how much emotional energy leaves her every day. She notices how drained she feels after certain conversations. She notices how some people only appear when they need support, but disappear when she needs the same in return. She notices how often she has abandoned her own well-being to maintain relationships that were never truly balanced. This awareness creates the foundation for boundaries. Not dramatic boundaries, not angry boundaries, healthy boundaries. For the first time, she starts understanding that protecting herself is not selfish. It is necessary. She begins recognizing that constantly giving without limits is not a sign of strength. It is a fast path to burnout. She realizes that emotional energy is a resource. Once it is depleted, there is nothing left to give. One of the first signs of this change is that she becomes comfortable saying no. At first, it feels unfamiliar. She may still experience guilt. She may still wonder if she is being too harsh. But with each decision, her confidence grows. She learns that saying no to others sometimes means saying yes to herself. She learns that declining a request does not make her uncaring. It simply means she respects her limits. People who are accustomed to unlimited access often react negatively to these new boundaries. They notice the difference immediately. The person who always answered every call is suddenly unavailable. The person who always listened for hours now ends conversations sooner. The person who always dropped everything to help now asks whether she has the energy before agreeing. These changes can feel shocking to people who benefited from her previous lack of boundaries. Some will accuse her of changing. Others will say she has become distant. A few may even call her selfish. What makes this difficult is that the empath often cares about these opinions. She does not enjoy disappointing people. She does not enjoy conflict. Yet, she slowly begins understanding a truth that changes everything. People who truly care about her will respect her boundaries. People who only care about access will resent them. This distinction becomes incredibly important. For years, she may have confused being needed with being valued. The two are not the same. Someone can need her support without valuing her as a person. Someone can depend on her emotional labor while contributing very little in return. Healthy boundaries reveal these differences with surprising clarity. Another major shift occurs when she stops accepting emotional dumping. Many empaths attract people who unload all their problems onto them. These conversations can last for hours. The empath listens, she offers advice, she provides comfort. She absorbs emotions that do not belong to her. While occasional support is a natural part of relationships, constant emotional dumping creates an unhealthy dynamic. The empath becomes a container for everyone else's stress while receiving very little support herself. As she grows, she starts recognizing the emotional cost of these interactions. She learns that caring about someone's struggles does not mean carrying those struggles. She learns that support should not require self-sacrifice. She learns that being compassionate does not mean becoming responsible for everyone else's emotional well-being. This realization transforms her relationships. Some become stronger because they were built on mutual respect. Others begin fading because they were built on unlimited access to her energy. The people who remain are often the ones who value her as a person rather than as a source of emotional support. Her boundaries look cold to people who benefited from her lack of them. As these boundaries become stronger, another unexpected transformation begins. The female empath stops chasing closure. This surprises many people because closure often seems like the final step after emotional pain. Most people assume that healing requires one last conversation, one final explanation, one final opportunity to understand why things happened the way they did. They believe answers will bring peace. For a long time, the empath believes this too. She replays conversations in her mind. She analyzes details. She searches for missing pieces. She tries to understand every decision, every action, every contradiction. Her natural empathy makes this process even more intense because she genuinely wants to understand other people's perspectives. She wants clarity. She wants logic. She wants answers that make sense of the pain she experienced. The problem is that not every situation offers satisfying answers. Some people never explain themselves honestly. Some people avoid accountability. Some people leave questions unanswered. Some relationships end with confusion rather than understanding. The empath spends countless hours searching for explanations that may never come. At first, this uncertainty feels unbearable. The human mind naturally seeks resolution. It wants a clear ending. It wants a complete story. Yet over time, the empath begins realizing that her healing cannot depend on another person's willingness to provide answers. Waiting for explanations keeps her emotionally connected to the very thing she is trying to move beyond. This realization marks a major turning point. Instead of asking why someone behaved a certain way, she starts focusing on what their actions revealed. Instead of searching for explanations, she pays attention to reality. Instead of waiting for closure from another person, she begins creating closure for herself. This shift is powerful because it changes where she places her emotional energy. Rather than chasing answers, she starts accepting what happened. Acceptance does not mean approval. It does not mean the pain suddenly disappears. It simply means she stops fighting reality. She stops demanding that the past become different than it was. Many people never reach this stage because they remain trapped in endless analysis. They continue searching for reasons. They continue revisiting old conversations. They continue hoping that one more explanation will finally bring peace. The empath eventually discovers that peace comes from acceptance, not explanation. This internal closure creates a sense of freedom she has not felt in a long time. The questions lose their power. The need for validation fades. The desire to understand every detail becomes less important. She realizes that some chapters do not end neatly. Some stories remain incomplete. Yet life continues moving forward regardless. The moment she stops needing answers is the moment she becomes free. As emotional freedom grows, a new chapter begins. This is often the stage that shocks people the most because it reveals a side of the empath that many never expected to see. Instead of focusing on what she lost, she begins focusing on what she can build. The energy that was once invested in unhealthy relationships starts flowing toward personal growth. For a while, this process feels unfamiliar. She spent so much time caring for others that she may not even know what she wants anymore. Her identity became connected to helping, supporting, understanding, and rescuing. Without those roles, she faces an important question. Who is she when she is no longer carrying everyone else? The answer unfolds gradually. She starts exploring interests she ignored. She returns to hobbies she abandoned. She creates routines that prioritize her well-being. She invests time in goals that were postponed while she focused on other people's needs. Each small step reconnects her with parts of herself that had been forgotten. This stage often begins quietly. A new book, a new skill, a new project, a new routine. Small changes create momentum. Momentum creates confidence. Confidence creates growth. What begins as a simple attempt to heal eventually becomes a process of transformation. The pain that once felt unbearable starts serving a different purpose. Instead of trapping her in the past, it motivates her to create a better future. She learns lessons that cannot be taught through comfort. She develops strength that only emerges through challenge. She discovers capabilities that remained hidden while she was focused on everyone else. One of the most remarkable aspects of this stage is the return of curiosity. The empath begins wondering what else is possible. She starts setting goals. She starts making plans. She starts imagining a future that is not defined by old wounds. This shift may seem simple, but it represents a profound psychological transformation. Her attention moves from survival to growth. People who have not seen her in a while often notice dramatic differences. She appears more confident, more grounded, more independent. The sadness that once defined her is replaced by purpose. The uncertainty that once consumed her is replaced by direction. She is still compassionate. She is still caring. But those qualities are now balanced with self-respect. What makes this transformation so powerful is that it happens from the inside out. She is not rebuilding herself to prove anything to anyone. She is not changing to gain approval. She is not growing to make someone regret losing her. She is growing because she finally understands her own value. The woman who once poured all her energy into others begins investing in herself. She learns new things. She develops new strengths. She creates new experiences. Every step forward increases the distance between who she was and who she is becoming. The woman they broke becomes the woman they can no longer reach. The journey of a hurt female empath is not the story most people expect. At the beginning, she may appear broken. She may appear exhausted. She may seem trapped in disappointment, confusion, and emotional pain. But beneath the surface, a transformation is taking place. Little by little, she starts withdrawing the energy she once gave so freely. She stops chasing people who do not value her. She stops rescuing those who refuse to save themselves. She begins recognizing manipulation where she once saw potential. She creates boundaries where there were none. She stops searching for answers that may never come. And instead of pouring all of her energy into others, she starts rebuilding the relationship she almost forgot to nurture, the relationship with herself. What makes this transformation so powerful is that it is not driven by anger. It is not driven by revenge. It is not driven by a desire to hurt anyone back. It is driven by awareness. The female empath finally realizes that love should not require self-destruction. Understanding others should not mean abandoning herself. Compassion should not come at the cost of her own peace. This realization changes everything. The woman who once tolerated behavior she did not deserve begins expecting better. The woman who once ignored her own needs begins honoring them. The woman who once stayed too long learns when it is time to walk away. And that is why so many people are shocked by what happens next. They expected her to keep forgiving. They expected her to keep waiting. They expected her to keep understanding. They expected her to remain exactly the same person she had always been. But growth changes people. Pain teaches lessons, experience creates wisdom, and once an empath learns those lessons, she rarely returns to who she used to be. A hurt female empath does not become heartless. She becomes selective. She does not stop loving. She simply becomes more careful about where that love goes. She does not lose her kindness. She learns that kindness without boundaries attracts the wrong people. She does not stop caring. She stops sacrificing herself for those who never appreciated what she gave. And the people who thought she would stay forever are usually the most shocked when she finally walks away. Not because she stopped loving them, but because she finally started loving herself enough to leave. If this video resonated with you, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever witnessed this transformation in someone, or perhaps experienced it yourself? Your story may help someone else who is going through the same journey right now. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like it, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. And remember, sometimes the strongest thing an empath can do is not holding on. Sometimes the strongest thing they can do is letting go and choosing themselves. We will see you in the next video.